we are talking about, years of friendship. But Lauren and Robert with us sharing some insight around recovery. And I know, guys, we are doing these weekly webinars, so please do share your insight. We also have Eric Newton, who is gonna be sharing what his experience and what he thinks is the right framework and what we should be doing and what we are noticing around the globe. So with that, Lauren is, I'm sure most of you guys know, but he's a founder of Hospitality Digital Marketing. I've known Lauren for last 25 years. I think we were in like kindergarten buddy or something.
Yeah.
And probably only soul lost in SEO and all the marketing work. Yes, Lauren? Yeah.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah. And Rob, he's a founder of Rock Cheetah. Yes, this is how you say it, right?
Rock Cheetah. Actually, normally one word, but that's okay. You can take some creative license.
Wonderful. Again, I've known Rob for ages, and he has done just phenomenal work around stats and consumer trends and what's happening to industry. Eric is VP of Marketing. You guys have heard Eric and his insights several times. So with that, let's kind of review what we are covering today. CRG framework, what are some of the marketing trends as of today? What's happening to consumer trend? What are people looking? What is the optimistic environment all around us? What are 5 ground rules of marketing, which Lauren is going to share? Correct communication, what are some of the things we are seeing around the globe? Hotel owners, business owners are deploying. And then, of course, what are some of the things you can do right away? So with that, anybody new to Milestone? Just a slide which I always share. Milestone is a software and a solution company working through several vertical: hospitality, restaurant, retail, healthcare technology. We provide full service solution and platform to enable to give you holistic digital presence across all channels. And here is our CRG, which is Crisis Recovery and Growth Framework webinar. This week we are reviewing with Rob and Lauren. Next week we have Chip Conley, and we are going to share what he's going to be covering and things like that, and registration. And then following week, 2 weeks from now, we are also going to have Chip Roger. But more information coming. With that, just little background on recovery. We are optimistic. There is a really nice recovery funnel, which is pivoted from old-fashioned funnel, because we cannot worry about demand until we worry about building confidence with our audience. So first step is building confidence, second step is building demand, and then driving conversion and building trust. If you are regular to our webinars and all the communication Milestone is doing, you're probably hearing this over and over again, that there is a big pivot in consumer sentiment, what they are looking for, and who are they going to do business with. The entire economy is opening, and most of the states are open, and there are a lot of things businesses are doing to come back. In fact, there was a really nice post from Win Las Vegas that what are they doing to open their breakfast buffet. I was kind of sad when I heard, oh, no buffets, and then I saw this really nice post around breakfast buffet, which is like, great. Hey, you are telling me that why I should trust and come and stay with you and enjoy the same thing which I used to love about your property. So with that, just if you're again new to this webinar, here is a beautiful funnel. We would love to get your feedback if you feel this funnel can expand more or shrink more, but 4 different categories or 4 different stages: confidence, demand, conversion, and trust. In fact, what we are seeing based on all the data and all the input we are getting across different verticals, different industries, different thought leaders, all our customers to be, there is a huge, huge spike in digital spending. A lot of people are, because this is the only way for you to reach out to secure your customers and to connect with them and do business with them. So with that, I'm gonna have Rob share some amazing insight around market as consumer and what's happening and what are people looking for and what we can really nourish and what we can nurture in terms of our marketing campaigns. So Rob, I'm gonna stop sharing and
Excellent.
hey, go ahead.
Excellent. Let me get my screen here, and that will be just a moment. Very good. Thank you very much, Banu. And I think the important point that is made is we are very optimistic on recovery. Now, do not confuse that for this is going to be easy and we're through with everything, right? So let's look at some of the stats. Probably throughout this webinar, we could probably do a full webinar on each one of our slides, but instead we're just going to be running through these very quickly, and then you'll be able to see the deck afterwards. So I'm going to talk about 4 specific topics. One is a little bit on the science of what's going on with coronavirus, some industry stats on our reason for optimism on the recovery, then really focus on the important stuff, which is consumer sentiment, and then really demand regeneration. So first, let's start off with the science. So number one, COVID-19 is certainly serious. I mean, if you look at these 2 graphs, the caseloads are flat across the United States, but you'll see it's very, very isolated by locales. So New York and Seattle have actually stabilized and have gone down dramatically. You can see Florida, Texas, Arizona going up. But the good news is that it isn't as transmissible, as severe. The mortality rates are lower. You can see the decline on the daily deaths. That is fantastic news, although those absolute numbers are still very, very high. 600 deaths a day is many, many too many. Now, the bad news is that there is no immunity among humans to this virus. There are only 2 ways to beat it. One is if the virus doesn't have access to hosts, which is people, it won't spread and it will die off. So if everybody stayed separated for 2 or 3 weeks, it would just go away. Unfortunately, the world isn't going to work like that. Or you get a successful vaccine. So what we're seeing right now is really that always the trade-off between convenience and security. It happens always in the digital world. Do I read the terms and conditions? No, I just click on it, sort of thing. Am I going to just click on the link? Sure, I'm not going to necessarily worry about the security. So that's what's happening now. They're getting fatigued from being apart from each other. They want to return to normal, which are very good normal things to do. But what's going to happen in the future? We've had our first wave, the peak, or we're in the first wave. The peak was March 29th, but it's going to keep plateauing through the summer. And so the case counts are down. Maybe the peak was at 200, 250,000 cases a day. It's down to 75,000, which is great. But those are going to be going up and down by city. So it's not just going to disappear. Now, the challenge is you have a second wave, which is very likely, all the experts and epidemiologists say, the fall it's going to come up as people get indoors, more people are going to school. And the big thing is mobility. So in February, if you took a baseline of mobility as being 0, April 5th through 10th, it was lower by half. So people around the US were not traveling, which was great. That's what's flattened the curve and got the case numbers down. The challenges they're projecting on September 1st through 15th, it's only going to be down 1%. So we're going to back up to that mobility. That's going to fuel this, this resurgence. And so that's not to be afraid. It's just, here's what you can do. So we're going to get through this, but just know this is going to be with us and you have to adapt to how you're behaving, exactly what Banu said. So let's look at a few stats, shall we? Number one, the hotel industry dynamics. It's very interesting. A lot of people are comparing, including myself, my work with Focusrite. You look at the number of cases and then what's happening with the hotel revenue per available room. And you'd think that would be a nice inverse relationship. And it is kind of, but the real factor is It's these local decisions on lockdown. So you can see in the upper chart on the right, the blue line is China, very, very severe lockdowns. But, and you can see their revenue per available room, their occupancy just dropped radically to 10%. Europe, similar thing, dramatic lockdowns and really, really, hurt the performance of the industry, but very good for public, I'm sorry, for public health outcomes. The US is that red line, which is going through. So we didn't really have the same degree of outcomes. And now you can see the industry is at kind of 40%, which is good. I mean, not compared to previous years, but from where we were before, kind of in the 20s, that's good. That everything's headed in the right direction. And certainly in terms of RevPAR disruption, which was off 84% year over year, it's now only down 60. So that's not great, but it's certainly the right direction and gives us certainly, point to be optimistic. Now, how is business going to be coming back? Really, the projected sequence, which I think everyone's pretty much accepted, is it's going to be local leisure first, in your local and kind of regional market, then domestically, because again, travel between countries is going to be tricky. It's a political decision partially, and there are going to be lots of frictions in that. Then domestic, business will start coming back. Then international, and then finally group and MICE segments will come back again, collecting lots of people together, not exactly the best thing for public health outcomes in a global pandemic. Now the exceptions are beach, mountain, highway, rural. They're doing really fairly well compared to, say, when you look at the U.S., the top 25 markets. Now there's one important thing to look at, and I don't want people to be disappointed, because you see this growth in occupancy, you see this growth in RevPAR, but you have to understand occupancy because there are two statistics at play. So one is the reporting occupancy. That is the occupancy based on the number of available rooms that are open. So it does not include the temporary closures. So in the US right now, it's over 40%, but there's still a chunk, and some very large hotels are remaining closed at this point. So if you take that on the economic occupancy, which is your full supply, the US is really at about 29% occupancy. Now you go, oh my gosh, that's horrible. Well, you start looking at Europe at an economic occupancy of 9%, or South America at 4%. That's not that bad. But the good news is we start looking at China. They're at 52% occupancy, overall reporting occupancy, and only 49 because all that temporary supply has come back. So that's the direction we're headed. So some other good news, especially for the smaller guys, if you're in a market with less international traffic, it's less densely populated. Maybe you have less meeting space, fewer rooms, longer length of stay is great, and lower ADR. All of those sectors are really outperforming the average. So it's kind of a real opportunity if you aren't the biggest player. That's okay. Scale isn't necessarily helping you now. This is localized. CBRE, just very quickly on their forecast, if you look at demand, that's the big number. They're going, boy, 2020 demand's going to be off 45%, but it's going to be up 49% next year, which is fantastic. Again, quick little multiplication refresher. If you start with 100 and you take off 50%, you'll wind up at 50. That's okay. A 50% increase off of that is only 25. So what we're looking at is from 2020 is the valley. We're going to get half of it back in 2021. CBRE is projecting another half back in 2022, and then we're back somewhat to where we were in 2019 by 2023. So again, some room for optimism, and this is the real reason to be optimistic. This is what the travelers want to do. They want to get out and travel and have some fun and get back to normal. So these are some statistics which came out of Morning Consult, which are fantastic. So this shows the growth they've been monitoring on a weekly basis. Going out to eat, now about 40% of the people are now getting comfortable to do that because things are opening back up. Well, look at what's number two. Going on vacation is edging out, going to a shopping mall or going to the movies or the gym. That's fantastic. So people want to travel. That's fantastic. Now, some demand generators, amusement parks, Disney's going to be reopening, things like that. But concerts, sporting events are still shut down. So you can't rely on everything that you used to rely on, but people want to get out and travel. And that's great, fantastic news. The reason they aren't is they don't feel very secure. They need the confidence, as Banu said, to go out and do this, that they're going to be safe. Now, this is a McKinsey study. Again, they've been tracking things weekly, but they asked what things can hoteliers do, and this is actually across Australia, Canada, Hong Kong, UK, US, so you can see wide variations between destinations and cultures and things like that. But I sorted out for the US, what gives the guest confidence? Is the room clean? Are you testing your guests? What are you doing to have downtime between stays? All of these that support the social distancing and the mask wearing and the hand cleaning, all the things the Center for Disease Control said you can do to keep yourself safe. They want to be reassured that you're doing these things and not just taking care of the guests, but taking care of your staff, so they won't wind up having a problem infecting your guests. Over the next 6 months, looking forward, these are some great MMGY stats, which 40% of the people are extremely likely to travel over the next 6 months. That's very good news for leisure. Now, 41% are actually now looking at it for business as well. And you can see where they were. If you look at the overall sentiment score, which if you take the likely and the extremely likely and you subtract the unlikely to very unlikely and you throw out the neutral, you kind of get an index of where things are headed. Well, March 27th, leisure was +9. It then went down to -7, not so good. Came back to 0 in May, and now in June it's back to +9. So that's very, very good news. Business actually really took a plummet. In May was down -14, but look at this recovery in June as things are opening up. So these again are all very, very good signs for a recovery.
Hey, Robert, you have 1 minute. Just to make sure. Okay.
Not a problem. This is the last part. The important part is really human behavior and looking at Maslow's needs hierarchy. I mean, let's go back to kind of college psychology. You've got to satisfy the basic physical security needs of the guests first. And if you don't do that, forget about the others because they're not going to be happy. So you've got to protect their health. Most importantly, you have to help them feel safe, which is slightly different. And then once you do that, you can start promoting belonging, give the guests control over their experience within the rules that you've defined, and then encourage creativity and all the great things that generate memories off of vacations. So how do you do this? You demonstrate expertise. Engage your local experts. You have all sorts of doctors and individuals who can help you with these things. Local operators, if you can provide bikes for families to get outdoors, they don't have to wear masks. Those are fantastic things. You can do these things in your local market, but very important, you've got to explain to them what are you doing and how, so you can clearly communicate to this. They know their expectations coming in, and then you start looking at the different personas, and we'll be getting into that as Lauren speaks, for both what you do in the hotel and offsite. Some of that empty meeting space, can you do a separated family feud? Maybe. I don't know. Be creative. Your guests will love it, but just communicate with them properly. And that's my section. Thank you very much. And I will relinquish control of Zoom here.
Thank you so much. And I know, guys, there are a lot of questions coming in, but we are going to take question towards the end, if that's okay. With that, I am actually going to
And I think I'm not sharing anymore. Hopefully I'm not sharing. Oh, no. There it goes.
Yep.
I lied.
Sorry, in just interest of time, I'm just going to share your slide. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll just ask you to move forward. I have fewer slides than Mr. Roberto.
I cut out 300 of them, I want you to know, Lauren.
Well, guys, just, we are all friendly speakers here, so please do not mind. So give me 2 minutes. I'm just trying to get to.
Lauren will sing in the interim. He has a tremendous.
No. We want to keep the audience. No effort. It's nice to know I'm not the only one growing my hair long. Robert, you look great.
Wonderful. Okay, so with that, Lauren, please take it away.
Hey, Banu, Banu, before we start, can you change the view? So I'm seeing the preview slide. I'm seeing 2 slides.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, we're seeing presenter view as opposed to.
Sorry about that, guys.
All right, why don't we take a question while Banu's doing that? Robert, thank you for the refresher on the percent, followed by the percent is not getting back to the previous base. The larger the X, the larger the gap. So many people don't get this.
Yeah, I thought we'd do a quick little math refresher and psychology refresher in my section. So,
Yeah.
because it is, when you have these crises, you need to go back to the basics, right? And do the basics very, very well and not forget about those. So
that looks good, Banu. Thank you.
Wonderful.
All right,
Thank you,
Lauren.
guys.
Yep, go right to the first slide, Banu. We're good to rock and roll. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Banu, for the privilege of being able to go over and share time with you and the team. Robert, I see, well, actually, I don't see him very often these days, but it's good to see him again. We're going to hit the marketing side. And one of the things that I think was inspirational to when you first approached me, Banu, was the fact that this is a new way of looking at things. This is not an old way of looking at new things. We're looking at new things in a new way. And that funnel and so forth is understandable by people. I'm not a big fan of funnels, but it is understandable by people how it transitions. So we're going to take a 5-step process to this. So we have 5 slides to go through. This is being the first one. And it's kind of a rule-based conversation. The first is we have to stop what we used to do, which is selling. We are no longer selling, we're communicating. We need to understand what the guest needs now. We're going back to a centricity of our guests. What is it that they need to understand about what we've done, what we need to do, what they want us to do, and what they need to understand when they're making their travel decisions. One thing out of any statistic that Robert can come up with or anybody else is bringing to market is all of us are very individualized as to our perception of when we will make that decision of travel. And that's based on communication and information of what we understand. Simple examples are what has changed in the rooms? What are the protocols associated with our arrival coming into the hotel, whether you're simplistically showing them a video that now you have plexiglass and no touch methods of payment and pick up lunch boxes, and how often is the pool open? Is it open? How many people can be in the pool? Do I have to schedule something? Is the gym open? What's the restrictions on it? What is there a spa? What are you going to use? What is there a parking restriction? Do I have to touch things? These are small micro communications that have to be conveyed to the guest for them to go through the process of discovery, affirmation, safety, and then the decision. And that's a little bit of the funnel dialogue that Banu's going to get more into detail about. But just these are the processes now. It's not about selling acquisitions, not rate and date, not about specials. It's about communicating effectively the data. Please, the next slide. So rule number 2, before there's a reopening, there's a pre-opening. Even if you've been open, you understand the dynamic changes in the market. The markets that we used to target, the ways we used to target them, the way we used to communicate with them are basically shelved. There are some residual things that are there. Don't get me wrong. There are some methodologies, communications, content that's still usable, but their usability has dynamically changed from what we used to do to what we need to do. Before you begin going back into the market, you would need to understand that your targeting is different, your marketing is different, your communication is different, your context is different. Heck, your operations are different. And all of those things are a mix of moving from what you used to do to what you need to do. Your channels of acquisition have changed, what the channels are used for. We can go into the things that have been in the news. We do that on the live show, but and Robert has tons of information on his side as well for this, but the channel use. We know that Expedia and hotels.com are purposely not diving into the market the way they used to, communicating the way they used to. We know that Airbnb is not jumping into it. There's all these different players to the market. Google has risen larger than they were before. And we have to use with and collaborate with all these channels as to what they're doing. Some of the things that you need to consider, and they're very fundamental, but critical to this, is that all of your driver and feeder markets have changed. You know that internationally there's a limitation to this because of closed borders and so forth. We know the domestic value of travel. We're not going to get into drive markets. There's fragmentations of that. There's all that variations to this. But things like your C events, have you changed your context of what you can actually handle based on CDC guidelines? And now your GDS global distribution system update. There is a Pandora's box of data on GDS that needs to get updated as to your facilities, capabilities, capacities, operational standards, information transference, and there's acronyms for all of that. So I'm not going to teach you about GDS today, but the idea is that these are the fundamental core platforms, GDS being critical to it because it's a standardization platform, as well as your website. Have you changed the context of your website? Have you changed the content of your website? Are you now showing images of not of happy groups of people hanging out at your bar, but relative simplicities of your staff with masks, the isolation that you've changed in your seating capacities in your restaurants, your pool as to being COVID compliant in your own municipality. We know there's fragmentations to that. There's statewide, municipal changes, county changes. Each one has their own rules. You need to reflect the honest and transparent value of what it is you're capable of doing, so people have that as a process of decision and understanding what they have to choose from. There's also the other fundamental aspects, which, believe me, go to Milestone for this, because they will always be the best at this. I can't tell you how much I respect Manu for her SEO capability. She's my go-to. Schema, all the SEO content variations that you need to identify within your websites that are relevant to the questions that people are now currently asking. And know that it changes. As soon as you get it done, you have to have the next plan. You have to understand the variances of where everyone else is going to go. It's like water. It's going to go anywhere it can go. So you have to have some plans of, well, may take a left, may take a right, might go center. Have some contingencies to this process so that if it does take a left instead of a right, you already have a preemption as to what you think you need to do for that, content that you need to add for that. Things as simple as Google My Business, yet another platform, of making sure you keep yourself up to date. And this isn't as simple as just saying, hey, due to COVID-19, we've changed some stuff, call us. Yeah, no. You need to go in and really change all these context and content so people can find and discover. They're still going to call you. They're still going to reach out to you, email, messenger, whatever it is. But you need to have the information readily available for them as well. Slide number 3, please. Oh, sorry, but
No worries, no worries. I'm just trying to.
I get speeding talking, but then there we go. Nope.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Really? There we go. Okay. Marketing rule number 3, one size does not fit all. This is not a set and forget environment at this point. It's a moving, changing thing. As people can, we make jokes about it in social media all the time. It's like, wait a minute, I just left out my COVID-19 decorations. I'm not ready for protest decorations yet. It's a constant market change. Nobody can plan for the fact that something's going to change the next day. We can, however, preemptively, proactively ascertain what we might think we need to be worried about. And this comes from going back to the data that we do have, looking at our historical data, our CRM data, communicating with our guests, looking for those new travel reasons for people to travel. Every day there's a different reason for people to travel. And as Robert pointed eloquently in his data, each day there's a different reason why people are finding the value proposition to travel. They're changing their perspectives of what is making their choice to travel, what they need to consider to make those choices for travel. Now, this goes down to developing personas. If you're not familiar with the terminology for it, by no means do we have enough time today, but it is a critical component to understanding who walks through your door. And in order to do that, you need to understand what they're interested in so that that content you're making available to them. So that's what persona marketing is for. Hyper-targeting, it goes to your drive market ideas. It's about defining where people are coming from, where they're going to, why they would come to you, what they need to know about if they did come to you that would make their decision to stay with you. You need to reevaluate all of your marketing strategies that come from the very top down. And this isn't a set and forget of just make one campaign, one ad set, one ad type saying, okay, this is our one persona we're chasing. This is the exact target we're looking for. And this is the campaign we're sending them. Great. You have to multiply that dozens of times, like throwing out a wide net to catch fish. You don't know where they exactly are, so you have to find out where they are. And then you define your market down to what is actually reacting to you. Doesn't mean all the other campaigns are bad, just means the timing wasn't right. You might have to come back to them later because that market might come alive again. It's monitoring that stuff. Understanding that your communication channels are critical. You have to keep open and transparent on your social, on your website, on your any methodology that you find is useful to your audience. I know there's a limitation to brand hotels that they don't often have these variations that other hotels might have. Using every one of them that's available to you is critical. Most importantly, the calling and the communicating. Without your front desk understanding what you're doing, it can fail if you don't communicate your entire process to everyone as to what's going on. We'll get to that. I call what's progressive retreating budget. Look at the largest thing that you can afford on cost of acquisition because it's an open market right now. A lot of terms that normally you wouldn't have used historically are now available and cost effective for you on paid channels, and go for them. And then as that cost of acquisition gets too high, retreat to a cost of acquisition that is still acceptable. And then when that gets too high, retreat down farther even for that. In reverse, because it's not just a one direction, there's a retreating ebb and flow. There's a progressive retreating budget that comes from there's markets that may emerge that you didn't consider that if you're first to it, you become the voice. Other ones you might have to step back from because other competitors come into it and the cost gets too ineffective. But it's an ebb and flow. You need to have an emergence budget that says we're going to spend where we have this conversion and we're going to retreat where we don't have that conversion. It's not a simple, here's our marketing plan for the year, here's our monthly budget. We'll put that on the shelf until we need to look at it next month. Those days are gone. And again, most importantly, there's no Calvary over the hill. There's no savior. It is, you are your own. Your destination market is yours. You have to identify your value proposition to your own market. You have to identify what your value is to those that are traveling through your market. And you have to identify what is the value in your market that you're related to. Slide number 4, please.
Awesome. So 1 second, Lauren. I know the questions are coming, so I'm just going to take some question. I think people said, what do you really mean about messaging? So here are some examples. Yes, you definitely don't want to, if you are concerned about how should I say, change your messaging, here is an example of being together, right up front, talk about happy and healthy, talk about what staff is doing, what you are doing. Again, there are hundreds and hundreds of example Milestone has, and that's exactly what Lauren was talking about, that how do you communicate being very authentic and ensuring that you build confidence with your audience with every single thing you're doing. So with that, Lauren, I think we can go into the next slide. This was all around what's happening to your consumers.
Yes. So, and there's lots of fun questions that we can try to throw into this as we go along with this. So, customer trends and pivoted marketing strategies. And Banu put this in a very succinct fashion to this, is that they're looking for their own individual value propositions as to what they're needing. And to answer towards some of these questions for this, to identify your local market, you have, honestly, and this sounds so simplistic of an answer, and I apologize for not. I'm not trying to underspeak to the question because it's a valid question. Ask them. Asking your guests what it is that they need to understand and know about, what it is that they need to be looking for that will make them feel comfortable to travel with you is key element to this. Some of the things by conveying this is by making a quick video that just has you walk through the hotel and shows the changes in protocol that you've created, the variations to what they do to control the elevator and hygiene, the cleanliness of the hotel and so forth. These aspects of communicating to the guests transparently. You don't know, each of us, and no matter what Robert's statistics can show, each one of us has our own threshold of decision for ZMOD. The ability of transaction when we decide that we're going to make that move to say we're going to do this. The ability to determine what your market is by asking those that are making it through, and by also looking historically at those that have used your product at the time before, what it is that they need. And that is a key element to getting them to understand what it is that you're offering them. So rule 4 is, what is old is new again. This is probably a shining lining to this process. We are hospitality people once again. Guest-centric communication, guest-centric service. What can we do for you? What is it you need to know about us? How is it that we can help you? What is it that we can provide as a service to you? Our key first questions to everything that we're doing. It is no longer about what we can sell you. It's no longer what we think we're wanting to tell you. It's no longer what we think we're contributing to. It is what it is we can do for you. It's not about your property. It's about your property asking when people, being thankful for them arriving. Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for coming in today. How can we be of service to you? The heart of the servant is now probably more important now than it ever has been before. It's not about running a business. It's about providing a service. And yes, the running of the business comes from providing the service. I'm not ignorant to the idea that there is cash and ebb flows to all of this, but the idea that you're going to succeed in business by providing service is the key element to this conversation. It is asking your questions to your guests, truly listening to the answers from the guests, and then replying and responding in kind to the guests and giving them the channels to do that. It's being transparent. It's not about trying to hide and act like you're doing things. It's verifying you're doing things. Showing, as Banu pointed out in the examples in the earlier slide, the pictures of people cleaning, the things that have changed, the notifications and the protocols, and all the information that will help people in that process of discovery to make a point of decision. And local is in. One of the questions is about how do I do this, kind of collaborate with other hotels and so forth. You should be collaborating with everybody. Everybody's been affected by this. Your restaurants you should reach out to and see if they provide food services that can be brought to your hotel, or that you make people aware if they stay at your hotel, or even offer to advertise to your audience that the restaurant is open to help them keep alive, that they're around the corner from you. You're all in this together. And I know this sounds like a cliche at this point, but it's a genuine statement of that restaurant around the corner survives because of people that stay at your hotel just as much as you survive knowing that that restaurant's around the corner. So collaborate on how you can share that knowledge between both audiences to them so that they know if they do want to come to that restaurant, they can stay at the hotel and vice versa. But you put this up on the Go Local part, and I think these are great examples of how you can begin to collaborate the knowledge that people need to understand that if they're going to stay with you, if they're going to come and be with you, what's going on? I mean, you know, you're the authority. You're the person in the market that knows these events that are going on, or these things are still open, or when they're open, or how they're providing service. What better way to be of value to the guest that's looking and asking about these from you than to share this information with them? Rather than them having to go rediscover it on their own, you're giving them that quantity. And the last, there is no normal. Don't look for the plateau. Don't look for the way it was. Don't look for how it's going to end up being. It is now. What you do now and what you do in the next few days and the next few weeks is whatever it is that day. There is no, we're not looking for the dust to settle, the bombs to finish dropping. The days go on, the business must go on, adaptively looking at what each day brings us and being proactive on the variations that can come up and knowing that we have to communicate clearly is critical to the entire team. We've often said in times past when it was calmer, when it was a peacetime market where we didn't have to worry about being hunters in the world, okay, that the front desk still needed to know what the special was, because nothing kills a great promotion than the front desk going, I don't know. Okay. And also the restaurant going, I don't know what this coupon is, or what are you talking about, or whatever it is. Everybody must be in. I would say that the convergence aspect of marketing, revenue management, and sales is a foregone conclusion. If you're not already doing that, if you're not already realizing that no more sandboxes, no more hidden agendas, no more private silos, if you're not collaborating, you will not succeed in this business environment right now. And that would extend into operations, HR, and accounting. HR needs to know who to hire. Accounting needs to know what you're being billed, and operations needs to know how to fulfill it. This is a team effort as if never done before, and it has to be a single entity that approaches the market from this point forward. So, woo, I did it. I did it in your time frame.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And again, I cannot emphasize this enough, right? It is not you alone, it's everybody together, you and your vendors, you and your staff. In fact, I was reading this before we began. If you want to go alone, quickly go alone. But if you want to go far, go together and make your partners your true partners. Make your team, explain them what your customers are looking for, make them part of the process, because that's when we can go far. With that, Eric, would you like me to transfer?
No, I'll do it if you can pass to me.
Okay, perfect. Give me 1 second. Right here. Go ahead.
Right. So on the left side are the traditional components of a marketing campaign. We figure out what the offer is. We decide on the message. We decide on what kind of materials we're going to use to promote it. We're going to amplify that reach and frequency. Those are the traditional pieces. But within that go-to-market mechanism, within that motion, with the pandemic, we now have a new funnel within that middle stage. And that is the building confidence. We have to evangelize why it's a reasonable idea, why it's acceptable, why the risks are being mitigated. And it's on our responsibility to build demand for the whole industry. So we have this additional burden, and I'm going to give you some very specific examples and use cases where hotels are doing this. So this is the recovery funnel in a little bit more detail. We will be sending out the slides in the video for you, and you can share them with your teams. And we'll go through 4 or 5 steps within each of these sub-steps that give you really specific actions you can take and you should be taking that affect your content, that affect your website, and as Lauren said, are information that you need to be sharing with your entire team so that this message comes out coherently to the prospective guests and the guests that are on your property. So my recommendation is to go on offense. Go on offense against the pandemic and be nimble. Banu showed that transformation slide. We are required to go at 2 or 3 times the pace, and I see some of the questions coming in that we've got less staff or less marketing budget. We're still required to figure these things out quickly and try and test a lot of these things and be in touch with our customers so that we can understand where the opportunities are. So how do we get in touch with our customers? How do we identify new pockets of markets that we can go after? Well, all of us scanning newsletters and information, we're attending webinars. You can send a survey directly to your customers, which Lauren alluded to, that just talk to your customers, listen to them. Call some of these customers. I've had the chance as a marketer to talk to our customers in the hotel industry, and it's so great to have an in-depth conversation, 15 or 20 minutes with the actual properties to get the real reality of what they're experiencing as we create this content for crisis recovery and growth. And don't forget to read the feedback that your guests are providing you in your normal feedback channels on checkout and on your digital surveys that are automatically running. Take a look at that and figure out where's there more opportunity, where's there something, an offer I can provide to them that would work, that would be appealing. So these are, in talking to customers and in running a number of these webinars for Milestone, these are some of the alternative use ideas that I've heard about. So family get-togethers, car trips with multi-generation families need multiple rooms. If you have extra room, what can you do with a common room? What can you do with a day room? Pet-friendly. I know a lot of members of my family have pets, and it's very restrictive. Benita, did you advance? It's very restrictive for us to find places that they can stay. So create packages for families, for extended families that involve multiple rooms. It's kind of like a conference or a wedding, but with 3 or 4 or 5 rooms, and make that room really competitive with their other options for renting a room. Banu, could you either give me control or go to the next slide? Thank you. So go back one.
Hey, Eric, I think you have the control. I'm not sure, but.
All right, so family accommodations. All right, once you decide on one of these packages, there are vertical search engines that you can use, that you register the information on those engines within the hotel industry, where you're providing family accommodations and illustrating the packages. Pet friendly, if you're going to make some rooms or some parts of the hotel pet friendly, there are additional marketing opportunities and search engines where people are looking for hotels that are going to allow them to bring their pets. All the hotels I spoke to charge extra for the pets, and their logic is, well, there's going to be a little bit of extra cleaning, but it's still cheaper than leaving the dogs in the kennel. And one of the things we have to remember about the pandemic is that a lot of people have gotten dogs. A lot of people have sheltered in their homes with dogs and cats and pets, and they're very attached to them. And as they reach out and start to travel again, they're going to want to bring those pets with them. So back to school is interesting. There's a million people going back to school and going back to college. And the dorm rooms it's not really social distancing to have 2 people in the same dorm room close together. So colleges and universities are looking for additional space so that people can have private rooms and private bathrooms and a more appropriate space for the fall semester. And I've talked to a number of hotels that are going out and going out and soliciting the business for their local universities. And they're contracting 10, 20 or 100 rooms at a time for the larger hotels, but this is another way to absorb some of the excess capacity. So one of the things that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks is the moratorium on evictions is going to end. And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be displaced, and those people are people who have jobs, or maybe they're coming off furlough, going back to work, and maybe they can't afford to catch up on the rent that they've had on their lease. And they're going to need weekly and monthly locations to sleep while they get resettled. And this is an interesting opportunity to go out and find that business, to kind of market to that other segment. All right, so looking at all these things together, figure out what works for your property, figure out what works for your business, and put together a variety of packages. Try a couple of things, 2 or 3 or 4 of these, and reach out to these markets. And as Lauren said, hyper segment into the markets with these new messages and these new offers. So once you put the offers together, some of these are going to work even better on limited time promotions. So if you have something coming up for 4th of July, or something that's seasonal, or something for Father's Day, uh, paid advertising is a great way to get that message out in real specific time windows with a lot of control over the message. So think about time banding the offers so that you're kind of bringing things in and out of markets, like some other businesses, like fast food businesses do, to try to create some additional demand and pull people into your property. So other things you can do to segment the audience by paid gives you a lot of ability to segment demographically and target by geography, and these will help you hit these markets. Same thing with paid social and social content that you can be creating to promote and communicate with the base about what's available. Of course, you have to change your homepage. You know, if these new offers are available, first you should be adjusting to your care page with your COVID information. The testimonials, like things like it's not business as usual. It's this new pandemic business. So you want to be getting updated quotes, updated testimonials about the experience and the safety of the hotel, about the local attractions. It's a new world, and a lot of the marketing that might have been out of date that you've created over the last couple of years is going to need refreshing. But you got to get these messages onto the homepage. FAQs need to be updated and prominent. And if you do the SEO and the schema correctly, those FAQs will be visible from Google, which we consider the homepage of your homepage. Local and Google are places where 60–70% of all journeys begin. And the more you can get your website content up to date and technically correct, you'll be able to get that exposure and bring in that traffic. And you got to take all of this information to your social media platforms. Don't forget to make new videos. Videos, pictures worth 1,000 words, and a video is worth 100 pictures, so that people can see what the experience is like, see other people social distancing and enjoying the hotel and enjoying that weekend away to get some rest and relaxation.
Wonderful. Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
Banu.
If you don't mind, maybe you can fast forward. I'm a little bit
Sure.
worried about making changes.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
But thank you. This was really, really great insight from Lauren, you, Eric, and Robert. And I hope all of you guys enjoyed. I know we are going to get to question real fast. So what is our key takeaway? Number one, building confidence, which means truly be authentic, right? We got to be authentic. And if people are worried about safety, we got to communicate that what we are doing. It's not just doing it. It's not all employees knowing this, but it's also making sure all our customer, everybody, start to finish, understand it. Because once you have this information everywhere, we need to make sure that people can see it, whether it's your GDS, your website, your social channels. It is even more important today because consumer has lot of choices, right? Airbnb is doing some phenomenal work around building confidence. Feel free to reach out to Milestone. We have a lot of things we are doing for our customers here. Number two is building demand, right? We got to pivot. Business travel, unfortunately, is not going to come back for next at least 12 months. Hopefully sooner, but not coming back. So how do you pivot? That's where you have to go into your HODs and GDS and all your channels and your GMB and select new categories. It's all about hospitality. People step out for Father's Day or 4th of July or different occasion, they should be able to come and stay with you, not because you're a business hotel, because you truly care for them. So building right audience and pivoting your marketing strategies, right? You're pivoting, going after, if it's university, then going to universities, really creating extended stay packaging, reaching out to all the parent community, because as a parent, that is one of my biggest worry. If my daughter goes back, what is going to happen to housing? An attractive offer. This is actually, unfortunately, fortunately, is the reality. It is a hunter market, and people are looking for bargain offers. and a great value. So add packaging and whatever they need. If it's a hike package or a experience package, bundle things together. So it's all about experience. End of the day, people can think about the experience. Number three, driving conversion. Conversion is hard because again, there are so many choices, and you have to constantly keep reinforcing that you are the right choice, not because we are pushing, because you truly care. So time sensitive offer, extra incentives, what does book today. uh, Again, there are several things people are doing to ensure there is conversion, and when it happens, there is a reinforcement. And last but most important thing, when they come in, what is a post purchase experience? Is your staff aligned? Do they have gloves? Do they have everything what you've been talking about? Are they aligned? Is that the experience guests are getting when they are walking into your property or any business? And how are you getting their reviews? Let's connect with customers. Let's get their feedback and post that feedback, share that feedback on all channels, because end of the day, that will help you build EAT, which is expertise, authority, and trust of your domain, and that comes from guest reviews. So again, there's a lot more information here. With that, I'm just gonna fast forward to next slide. If you guys do want to, we are, thank you, Milestone team. We are offering that to first 30 attendees. If you're a Milestone customer, please do not worry. If you are new to Milestone, we are happy to help you. We are happy to review what are some of the things you must do during recovery checklist. And please do share share it with us. With that, I'm going to just tell you one more exciting news. We have Chip Conley, and if you are part of hospitality industry, right? He was the one who started Draw the Weave. He was the one who was behind Airbnb and all amazing. What does it take to create experience and entire human need? He's gonna be with us next week. July 1st is the date, right, Eric? And we are gonna be sharing this with everyone shortly. He's going to be talking about how do you build those amazing experience overnight with little investment, right? It's true heart to hospitality all over again. I have put in, again, I'm a very big Chip fan, so I have put in a lot of his videos and his books and everything else he's doing, but more information coming. With that, we can open it up for Q&A. Let's go. I know there are a lot of Q&A, so let me just click. How many?
Throwing some text answers out there, but that by no means answers everyone's questions. I was just throwing some answers for some of the ones I could put comments on.
Perfect. Hey, Eric, do you mind just taking Q&As?
Yeah, sure. All right.
Since you're controlling my screen, so you take the question.
I'm controlling your screen. Do you want it on the chip or the offer? Let's put the screen on the offer so people can see the URL. So, Rob, here's a question for you. If there is a second and third wave, do we expect it to go back to the April lows for leisure and business? That's part of that future prediction you were working on, right?
Rob, you're on mute.
Rob, you're on mute. There you go.
Sorry about that. I was being so courteous by being muted. I wouldn't think we would go back there. Number one is these come down to political decisions, right? And what happens with the lockdowns? Lockdowns would drive those old levels. I think that's a very unpopular political decision, particularly in the US. What would trigger it would be some sort of overrun of the local healthcare system. So if you have a tremendous spike in something like Los Angeles or a large, dense city, then possibly, but certainly not nationwide. Highly unlikely to be any sort of statewide sorts of things. So I think what would more than happen would be you'd have greater enforcement of wearing masks, for example. That's happening in Texas right now, where there was a pushback from the state level of not requiring masks. Now they're letting cities, and cities could not be more strict than what the state defined. They've now eased up on that because they're seeing Houston, Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio are all starting to come up very, very sharply in case levels. And it's like, hey, we've got to be a little bit more strict. So I think they may roll back to maybe restaurant distancing, maybe go from 100% if things get bad to 50, but I don't see the lockdowns. I think they'll moderate it.
Thanks, Rob. So everything we're talking about requires marketing dollars, which are on freeze. Are there some recent stats or thoughts to share with the owners to convince them to start allocating the right amount of money? This is that investing in a downturn question. Maybe Banu or Lauren on this?
Go ahead, Lauren.
Well, I answered that a little bit in text, and of course, you can't write War and Peace novels for all of these things. If you're really having a rigid, there's a freeze, you can't buy a pencil without, going through 5 layers of authorization. I would first suggest looking at what you can do for free. Obviously, if you have a provable case, then you can move forward with your argument. And the best suggestion I have to that is 2. One is if you have access to social media in which you can create this content that you would want to use, and you have some audience, any audience, to register that with, and getting an engagement level that can show that by what you posted, people were responding to, that gives you a catalyst to go to your ownership and say, look, this is something we need to invest in because this is, according to engagement, what people are interested in hearing from us. So if we can pay for our opportunity to be in front of these people, sharing this content with them, they're going to be feeling more comfortable making a purchase decision with us. The second, and one of the more effective ones I found, and there's lots of platforms that use this, I'm certainly not to promote them for any other reason other than they're out there, is modeling platforms. If you can take your historical information as to your previous traffic to channels like your social or your paid, and you show your previous conversion values and so forth, and you model what if you were to get at certain levels of that same traffic or at those similar conversions, what the revenue would look like should you go back into the space. That sometimes can be a convincing argument as well, saying, look, this money's on the table right now. Our comp set is not doing these things by doing proper research. And we should and could take a large market voice, a large market share of the demand that is still available in our market with proper targeting and get this level of revenue from this. So modeling helps a lot with that. So those are 2 aspects of it.
If I can just add one thing.
Yeah, Rob.
If you don't spend any money on the marketing, right, you can do that. Certainly is an alternative. You can do absolutely nothing, in which case, what is going to drive your revenue? What's going to drive your share shift to do it? It's got to be some external factor that you don't control. I don't know. That doesn't normally work out that way. You will probably lose share to competitors who are doing the right things and are engaging. So if the owner is willing to take a step back and lose share and wind up in a deeper hole than the competitive set, okay, that is a strategy. But if you want to stay even or get ahead, and let me tell you, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste, right? That the time you increase share isn't during downturns and points of disruption. I mean, that's a business fundamental. So this is an opportunity to do things right and grab share and then maintain it and grow and not dig yourself a hole.
All right, next question. If you are a business hotel, does it make sense to change course and target leisure? I'll give a quick answer here. Yes, it definitely does. This is definitely something that'll help tide you over. And some of the tactics we talked about in this webinar will help you do that. You need to figure out how to appeal to families in the drive markets. And speaking of drive markets, how do you find out what are your local drive-by feeder markets if you haven't actively focused on them? Maybe Rob, is that in your bailiwick?
Sure. This harkens back to my first job pre-opening a hotel. There are a number of different things. One is, why was your hotel built? I mean, basically, on what were the fundamental reasons for the property? If you're an airport property, if you're a highway, if you're downtown, what were the core attributes of that? And then you start looking at what are the local groups or communities, even though they may be all dispersed, what can you do to start generating interest based on the personas? So you understand the purpose of the hotel, what personas does that attract? This hotel was designed for young couples. This is really good. We've got some great romantic stuff going. This is a great place for families because we do such and such. All those different things are slightly different. But then if you can start targeting, again, those sources, and it may be group, it may be golf clubs in the
Rob,
local or regional
what's
area.
the distance for the what are the definitions for the drive-by and feeder markets?
Boy,
Proximity.
it varies radically. I've heard up to 10 hours. I mean, in some cases, depending on the destination. Now that would be more like a beach resort or something like that. But if you're in a city, I would say, certainly neighboring counties and even people in the local community, neighboring states are.
I'd add into this just a little bit, and this is demographically based, so please understand there's variances to this. But there's three primary drive markets. There's tethered drive market, which is within 150 miles, which is 2 hours or less, which is I want to stay close to home and just get away for a little bit. Those are short-term pickups, short-term stays. Then you have what we call donut driving, which is anything up to 300 miles from 200 to 350 miles, which is longer so that when you get there, because it's pretty much the duration of the day to get there, you're going to stay for a little bit longer, but those are usually event and or cause-driven things like convalescence support, student support, reasons to be. Those things have also still a bit of a short-term pickup, but a little bit possible length of stay duration. And then there's the long drive, which goes to a little bit of what Robert's saying, which can be over 300 plus, usually around 350 plus, which is an all-day drive. You're going to get somewhere. You want to stay there for an LOS stay, length of stay, where you're there to get away and be there for a period of duration. So those are some of the criteria that we're involving with. And then there's demographics associated with that income.
All right.
I know we are almost at par, but guys, there are a lot of data available around your feeder market through digital tools. So again, we don't have time to go through that, but happy to share. You already have this information.
And the DMC, your Convention Visitors Bureau, DMC, they have a lot of this information because that's driving a lot of their local and regional advertising campaigns, things like that.
All right, that's all we have time for. Back to you, Banu, for final comment.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. I know we have gone like 1 minute over, but cannot thank you, everyone, Rob and Lauren, for sharing. Eric, and audience, please do let us know if information we are covering, is it helpful for you? And can we improve anything or change anything? Because it's only valuable if we are making a difference, if we are bringing that value to you. And also, please do sign up for Chip Conley. We are going to probably max out registration soon. So information coming to you. How do you become marketing dollars are less? One last thing I'll say, it is really hard for owner. I'm a business owner too, and it is hard because this is something they built years, and it seems like going away. So you kind of want to make sure that you are very, very, very selective in whatever you offer and you share value, because most important thing as a business owner you want to see is not 100 activities. It's not about social media posts and 100 things. It's about the outcome you are going to hold yourself accountable for. And last but not least, don't be afraid of falling. It is fine. Nobody has a process document for pandemic. And if you have one, please do let me know. Please do not create a process document around pandemic. And if you are creating one, keep evolving and keep changing, because more you evolve and more you change and more you experience, more perfect your process is going to be. So with that, thank you everyone for tuning in. Really, really appreciate it. And have a wonderful week and a day. Thank you.
Thank you, Banu. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Robert.